Merry Christmas! My name is Rebecca Dimanche. I am one of the volunteers for CSA Kids, and I am so happy to be with you all this morning on this beautiful Christmas morning. Today we're going to talk about the birth of Jesus. However, before we start, tell me, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday drink? Mine is hot chocolate with marshmallows on top, with chocolate syrup drizzled on top of the marshmallows. You sip it in the cold weather and it's just perfect. Tell me, what is your favorite holiday or Christmas drink? Yum! Alright, we got good taste. I like it. Alright, let's jump into our lesson. Today we're going to talk about Jesus is born, and we find our lesson in Luke chapter 2, verse 1 through 7. Mary and Joseph had to take a long trip to Joseph's hometown. They packed all of their bags and started walking. They had to go a really long way. Let's pat our legs to make it sound like we are walking, just like Mary and Joseph. Great job. When they finally made it to Bethlehem, there were so many people there, they couldn't find anywhere to sleep. Can you say, oh no? Oh no! Joseph asked the innkeeper if he had any rooms left. The innkeeper did not have a room for them, but he did have a stable. A stable is like a barn, where it's where all the animals would sleep. So Mary and Joseph sat down to rest beside all of the sheep, cows, and donkeys. Let's all say baa like the sheep in the stable. Baa! Now, let's all moo like the cows in the stable. Moo! That night in the stable with all of the animals, Jesus was born. Mary wrapped baby Jesus up, safe and warm, and laid him in a manger because there was no bed for him to sleep in. Jesus, God's Son, was born. Let me hear you say this after me. Jesus is God's Son. Great job everybody. Wonderful job. We love the Christmas story because not only of what it represents, Jesus being a gift to us, but with the birth of Jesus and Jesus being given to us, we receive joy, peace, hope, and we receive God's love. So the way I think of it is, Jesus is everything that we need all the time, no matter what season, no matter what the time is. So whatever you may be needing this season, Jesus is everything you need. Alright? So when you guys go home and throughout this week, I need you to remember the memory verse from Luke chapter 2 verse 11. And it says, "Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord." Alright? Good job. And now, let's welcome a special Christmas testimony by Taryn.
Hi, I'm Taryn, and I'm very fortunate to be sharing my story with you today. Hi, CSA Kids. I'm so thankful for allowing me to be able to share my story, and I pray that God uses me through this message today and sharing my testimony to reach all of you. And it was on my heart to share this message, so I'm so glad I have the opportunity to do so. So a bit of backstory. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in a split household due to divorce, but my stable ground was always going to church and the community I had through that. My siblings and I were a blended family, 2 siblings from my mom's marriage previously, and then 2 from my dad's. And then I was kind of the glue in the middle between the both families. It was often hard because I felt as though I was split between two households and essentially two different lives. But sadly, nothing would prepare me for the tragedy that would occur when I was only 6 years old. My father was a loving father. He taught me how to shoot a basketball, attempted to teach me how to ride a bike. That was a little iffy for a little bit. And then always taught me the sky is the limit on what I could achieve in life. So with my parents being divorced, I spent every other weekend at each parent's house, which was good for me because I loved having 2 princess beds, of course, when I was little, getting double the amount of kids to play with in each neighborhood. But like I said, it was really hard living 2 different lives, essentially, so young. So on this particular weekend, when I was 6, I was supposed to be with my dad. I was really excited to go over, but he sadly never came to pick me up. I'll never forget that morning. It was a Sunday morning when my mom and I were getting ready for church, and she receives a call, and she was super upset. I didn't understand really at that time what that meant. I just remember her crying and us gonna be late for church, but I was super excited to go to church, but this had happened. So my mom, being the amazing, strong person she collects herself, and she drives us to church because that was our strong support system at the time. And then once we got to church, my mom went to go talk to the pastor before service, and I got to sit with my friends, and I got to do some coloring during church, and I was super excited, but I didn't, of course, know what was happening in the background. So the backstory to that Sunday, why my dad never picked us up, is that he sadly passed away that day, which was honestly a lot, and I didn't really understand at the time how much that meant and the capacity that that would have on the rest of my life. I just remember thinking in my 6-year-old brain, it'll all be okay as long as I get to just see him again, because I have things to tell him, of course, right? So this tragedy of my dad passing left my mom and I to be on our own, along with my 4 older siblings, but they were all out of the house at that point, so it was really just me and my mom. And overall, she was so strong, and I wouldn't be here today without her pouring so much into me at a young age. And she always instilled in me the importance of leaning on God in all times, but especially those moments where you feel as though you have no one else to turn to because you always have God. So, like I said, this had a really big toll on our family. Things weren't the same, and our somewhat broken family from divorce was still super broken, and now even more so because we were missing a part of our family. So I didn't realize how much this event would turn my whole life upside down, but in the end, God works all things out for good. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. When I was 13, it was my first summer before my freshman year of high school. So my church, this meant that we would go on mission trips all over the United States. And this particular one that we went to was in South Carolina. And there was about 1,200, so 1,000 participants over the week working on various houses in the community to rebuild the town. You would be put into crews made up of different youth groups, and I was by far the youngest in my group, and somehow they trusted me to be the leader of this crew. So that was truly God preparing me where I didn't know I was prepared. And we met our crew, and everyone was talking about what they wanted to do with their lives. And a little backstory on that, I wanted to be in the medical profession, right? Because at SGU, I am a vet student there. But I didn't really know what that meant. So I applied to both a medical magnet program and a veterinary magnet program. And I was super sad because I got waitlisted for the medical magnet program for my high school. So I kind of was upset and disappointed and somewhat angry because all I wanted to do is help people, and I didn't understand why I wasn't able to do so. I would soon find out that this was not just a no, it was a redirection. And at this point, it was a lot for myself to even admit that I was angry because I'm a pretty easygoing person, and I don't really get mad. So this is like the first time I kind of saw that my path was maybe different than what God had intended. But God had a different plan, and I didn't know about it quite yet. So to fast forward, there was a night that Our small group prayed, and I prayed for direction and ultimately a way to navigate all my future steps, because I knew it wasn't in my hands, it was in God's. So the next day rolls around and we get to our work site, the first day of work, and somehow I got elected to be site leader, like I said, and I had to instruct everyone on tasks needing to be done, got to read a building manual, all of which I felt very unqualified, which I soon learned that if you just step out in faith, God truly qualifies all of your steps. So after we are working on the house, we are reskirting the bottom of a trailer and preparing to dig holes and placing cement for a new wheelchair ramp, and all of a sudden I hear the tiniest whimper underneath the house. Meanwhile, we were just about to close off the perimeter of the trailer so we could start painting and applying the new siding. I used my flashlight and another girl on my crew, and lo and behold, there was a litter of 9 brown lab puppies underneath the house, and we all went under one by one, pulling them out. We asked the owner if she'd ever seen them before, and she hadn't. She saw the mom, but she had not seen the puppies. So when we had breaks during our construction that week, we took care of them, making sure they were good and taking all the ticks off them, stuff like that. And by the end of the week, we returned them all to the shelter. And at that moment, I truly understood that God had impeccable timing, and realized that this was just a sign to pursue veterinary medicine instead of human medicine, with the first step being submitting my veterinary magnet student application despite my medical one being waitlisted. So God's closed door was his protection for redirection in my life. In the days to follow, we got the chance to share the gospel with our resident while working on her house, and she came back to the church after all these years of not going after her husband had died. A bit later in that week, a event called Cry Night, which is essentially like a night where it gets very emotional and you get in touch with God. However, on this night, it was so clear that it was my ultimate turning point. So up until this point, I would have said I was a Christ follower, but my relationship with him was not so strong. I often went through the motions, but wasn't actively pursuing a relationship with God. This night, they told us to spread out all over the large gymnasium, and they rolled out huge rolls of paper. And as you saw fit, you grab a marker and you write one word that comes to mind when you think of God or what God means to you. And for me, I was like, okay, I got this. I went to private school, like a Christian school. I grew up in the church. I felt as though I could definitely come up with one word. However, at this point in time, I couldn't write anything on the page. I just couldn't think of anything. I had put up a wall, to lose another person so dear to me, but in result, I also grew further away from Christ. So here I am, staring at this piece of paper, and I truly just broke down in tears. And at that point, I had neglected to admit that I was mad at God for allowing my dad to be taken away from me all those years prior when I was 6. He was the leader of faith in our household, and I couldn't let go of the hurt I thought God caused, but in reality, it was people's actions that hurt me, not God. So after crying for probably a solid 2 hours, just staring at this piece of paper, I prayed that my heart not be hardened, and that he will do in my life as he wants. And at that moment, I truly had clarity of who God was to me. God to me is the ultimate father. As I wrote down Father on the piece of paper, the song came to mind, "You're a good, good Father. It's who you are." I realized I was looking to fill a void I had in my heart with the few memories I had with my dad, and the moments we could have had in all the sporting events and recitals and just huge life moments in the future. I was looking for validation and was frustrated for it all being taken away from me without my input. However, I was looking in all the wrong places to fill that void. Only pursuing a relationship with Christ could fill. He is a good, good Father, and he always knows what we need and when we need it. God showed me that day that once you put your trust in him, he truly will move mountains. After that week, I went on to attend 5 more mission trips in the following summers, impacting so many communities and myself being impacted and growing in every new situation through Christ. I did end up attending the veterinary magnet program during my high school, ultimately fulfilling the path I thought was super unreachable, but God made a way and made it become reachable. I got into my dream undergraduate school when I felt all odds were stacked against me and I felt I couldn't leave my mom alone, but God provided a way. I got into SGU as the only vet school I applied to because God qualified me, the unqualified. And all throughout my life, my time here on this island, even though getting evacuated during COVID and getting back here, God had every step planned out throughout the way. I truly wanted to emphasize through my story with you all that although the lows may seem unthinkable to get out of, God brings you out of them and uses your experiences to impact and change other people's lives. I personally have been impacted by so many people at CSA and through Grenada, especially my family that I've made through my class. So I encourage you all to go on in life after we go through situations and embrace what you've learned in the struggle. And so maybe one day you won't have to go through it alone, and you can provide someone else by lifting them up, just like Christ does for us every day. Thank you guys so much. Miss you guys. Bye.
Not a king adorned in splendor, robed in glory, but a baby in a manger born to save. Not a warrior who fights his way to power, but a friend who faced the cross to set us free. You are with us, you are with us in every moment. You are with us, you are Jesus, you are Jesus in every moment. You are with us. Wrapped in rags, receive the gift of heaven. With the word you bring the dead to life again. You were there from the beginning of creation, with a promise to be with us in